Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, everyone.
Thank you for joining
Thank you for joining us
today as
today
we launch the
we launch
2021 Rural LISC all virtual seminar, Partnering for Investment in Rural America. My name is Caitlin Kane, and I am a LISC Vice President and Director of Rural LISC. We are coming to you today from beautiful New York City. I know not our traditional rural backdrop, but the headquarters of LISC and an ideal tech hub from which to launch and gather for this year's very first all virtual event. I want to give special recognition to US Bank, this year's seminar title sponsor. This event would not have been possible without the support and enthusiasm of our sponsors, like US Bank, who remain committed to supporting rural LISC even as we pivoted from an in-person gathering in Memphis to an all virtual platform, now complete with avatars and scavenger hunts and more on that soon. But thank you to US Bank and a giant thank you to all of our key seminar sponsors for making today possible. Here with us today to help kick out at the opening session is Mayor Strickland of Memphis, Ralph Perrey of the Tennessee Housing Authority, and Kathy Cowan of LISC Memphis. Some phenomenal superstar community leaders doing incredible work in housing and development in Memphis and rural Tennessee. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Kathy Moore Cowan, the Executive Director of LISC Memphis. Kathy leads Memphis LISC's efforts in expanding affordable housing, community reinvestment, and economic opportunity. For over 2 decades, Kathy has worked collaboratively with others to strengthen and revitalize Memphis's neighborhoods. Her prior executive roles included serving as a vice president for Regions Bank, the Memphis branch of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and as a founding president and CEO of The Works, Inc., a faith-based nonprofit community development corporation of Memphis. Kathy just celebrated her 1-year LISC anniversary. Congratulations, Kathy. We could not be more thrilled to have you with us here today. Welcome.
All right, let me unmute myself. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Memphis. Oh, I'm so sorry you couldn't come here. It's such a wonderful city. We have so much to explore, so much history, the music, the food. Woo, you're missing out, but hopefully you'll get another chance to come to Memphis. But I do want to welcome you. As she said, LISC Memphis is all of 1 year and about 3 weeks old. You are in the hub of the Memphis LISC office, right here in the midst of my quilting room. Starting work in the middle of a pandemic, you don't go out and get office space, but that's coming, that's coming. It has not stopped us from working, and we're working on a lot of the same issues that you're working on in your rural communities. What I've found with my past experiences working for the Federal Reserve Bank and regions where I covered large rural areas, our issues really are the same. And I was really sort of surprised to find that out, but we're working on some of the same issues. Here in Memphis, this first year, we've been working on affordable housing. We've been working in partnership with the city and others on group violence intervention, things of that nature. And crime, housing, transportation, food insecurity, all of these are issues that your rural communities face as well. So we dig in. There's something in this conference for everybody, whether you're urban, whether you're rural, we're all connected. We can't survive without each other. And so, yeah, we're here in Memphis, but Memphis is right here in the midst of the Delta, and a lot of our economy depends on the region, as all cities and rural areas do. So that's enough. I'm a storyteller. I might go on a little too long, but let me take this opportunity. What I want to do now is just introduce our mayor, Mayor Strickland. Mayor Strickland's he's a public servant. I first met him back in 2007 when we both were serving at that time on the Board of Adjustments. Now he went on to be on the Memphis City Council in 2007. And then in 2016, he was elected as the 64th mayor of the city of Memphis. He's currently in his 2nd term. Throughout his tenure, he really has focused on crime, poverty, and blight, and he continues to do so. not a native Memphian. I'm not either, but we love this city. He was born in Indiana, but he came to Memphis at an early age. He graduated from Christian Brothers High School. He went on to the University of Memphis for his undergraduate degree, and then on to the Cecil Humphreys Law School, where he graduated. He's married with 2 children, and something that you won't find if you Google him. His mother-in-law is a quilter, just like me, and we're in the same guild together. That's an important fact. But anyway, without further ado, you're going to hear from Mayor Strickland. Thank you and welcome. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Mayor Jim Strickland. I want to welcome you and say thank you for attending the Local Initiatives Support Corporation National Rural Conference. Continually raising awareness and ensuring that the region is working together to accomplish our goals is incredibly important. While I know you're not here in person, I hope that when you're able to, you'll come see us. Memphis is home to the blues, the place where express package delivery was perfected, and every day here, the doctors at St. Jude are working to cure childhood cancer. We're a city big enough to keep you entertained, but small enough to make you feel right at home. We have some of the best food in the world, a rich history worth learning, and a welcoming spirit that you don't find in too many places. Hopefully soon enough, you'll see firsthand and experience what my words can't fully describe. Have a great conference, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
But let's pivot right now actually to a new introduction of another individual, an innovator.
Introducing my friend, Ralph Perrey, who is the executive director of the Tennessee Housing Development Agency, and all across the state of Tennessee, a friend to affordable housing. Ralph was appointed in November, following 9 years of service actually on THDA's board of directors. And I didn't know this, but now he's the longest serving executive director in the agency's history. His tenure as the executive director has seen the agency revamp its mortgage products and down payment assistance programs, establish its loan servicing division. And this is something that I thought was just great. And that was basing staff throughout the state to make them more accessible. Used to be you had to run to Nashville all the time, but now there's a West Tennessee liaison, East Tennessee, and that really helped. And it didn't seem like it should take a brain surgeon to figure that out, but they did it. They did it, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. Ralph is a person that I've worked with for quite a while, back to his Fannie Mae days, which predate his THDA days, and just letting you know how long and hard we've been working in this arena. So I appreciate my friend, and without further ado, here he is, Ralph.
Kathy, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and great that you're working for LISC. They couldn't have picked anyone better to lead that office. So I'm looking forward to our work together and getting back on the road and seeing you there. So to Caitlin and all of you participating in this rural seminar, I had sure hoped to be with you in person to welcome you to Memphis, welcome you to Tennessee. I'm glad that we'll have some sort of a return engagement in the future, because Memphis, as you'll hear from the mayor, I'm sure, it's a great town. It's important historically to the whole Mississippi Delta region. And as Kathy mentioned, you can have a pretty good time in Memphis. We'll look forward to doing that with you. At the Tennessee Housing Development Agency, we start all of our work with a simple purpose in mind. We're about meaningfully expanding affordable housing opportunity. And while it's expressed differently probably in your state, but it is a commitment shared by all of the state housing finance agencies. And if you're not already working with yours, I would surely appreciate it and encourage you to develop that relationship. Now, I suspect that some of you might be wondering why it is that the Tennessee Housing Development Agency wanted to step up and sponsor the Rural LISC annual seminar. It's not just because we thought you were coming to Tennessee. It is because the housing challenges of rural counties and small towns is just as important to us as I know it is to all of you. And it's because Rural LISC is already a great partner with THDA in that work. Your financial opportunity centers in Appalachian East Tennessee, for example, with our friends at the Clinch Powell Resource Conservation and Development Council and the Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Important work being done up there. When he took office, Tennessee's governor, Bill Lee, challenged every department and agency of state government to do more to help our state's rural places thrive. And over the last 3 years, the number of distressed counties in our state has actually declined. It's fallen from 15 to just 9. And I like to think that THDA's work has had a little bit to do with that. We have targeted housing tax credits to rural developments. We've modified the rules and requirements of our own grant programs to make it easier for rural organizations to qualify and participate. Our Rebuild and Recover program grants, they're targeted to rural communities that have been hit with things like flash floods or tornadoes or wildfires. You know, big things in a small place, but not big enough to hit the damage threshold that are required to bring in a lot of federal help. Soon, when we launch our Homeowner Assistance Fund, we will provide over $6 million to our nonprofit partners who will help us reach and help the thousands of homeowners who have fallen behind on their mortgage payments since the onset of COVID. And we're setting up a similar effort to support our emergency rent relief program. We know those efforts are going to be especially helpful in our rural communities. You know, these last 2 COVID years have been difficult and dispiriting for many of us. It's been hard to find a silver lining in all of this, but I really think there are some for rural America. The number of people who've spent a lot of time locked down in a big city are starting to rethink what life might be like for them if they move to a smaller town or a more rural setting. And I think there's opportunity there for us. In one of my favorite movies, you know, I'm a baseball guy, Field of Dreams. Ray Kinsella hears a voice while he's standing out in the cornfield, and it tells him, if you build it, he will come. And I think I hear a similar message, but it's not telling us to build a ball field. It's telling us to build housing and broadband and support systems like what your organizations already provide so that rural Americans can share fully in those new opportunities. If we build it, people will come. They will come to live and work in our communities. They will spend their money with our local businesses, and they will create opportunities for our children in the places that we have long called home. Now, of course, that's going to take some time and effort. So we also need to pay attention to the second voice that Ray hears out in the cornfield, the one that says, go the distance, because there's a lot of work to do and some distance yet to travel. And it's all the more important that we get started on it right now. I thank all of you for your partnership. I truly draw encouragement from your example, and I look forward to seeing you on my travels or when yours bring you back here to Tennessee. I hope you have a great conference. And with that, Caitlin, I will happily yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you so much for that, Ralph. You've been truly going the distance through THDA and all of your housing initiatives, particularly coming out of this pandemic, where emergency relief services have been absolutely critical to the communities that we serve. So thank you for everything that you do on that front. And thank you for being a part of this year's rural seminar. And I am absolutely taking you up on the rain check to come back and visit you in Memphis. It's a guarantee. Now, for those of you who have attended past rural seminars, you know that these gatherings are usually chock full of informal, yet very purposeful conversations. And I know that it's difficult for us to be doing that this year in a virtual setting, but we are attempting to do just that, even though we can't be in person in Memphis. So to recreate such moments and just to simply reconnect and talk informally amongst each other in our organizations, we'll be breaking everybody out into 2 distinct groups for 20 minutes each. So these are 2 groups for 20-minute sessions. And as part of this session, we are asking you all to turn on your camera, get to know everybody in your breakout session, and simply introduce yourself, your organization, and to share a few reflections. Particularly, we would like you to reflect on 2 questions. So the first question that we're going to be asking you is, what is the one thing your organization has done over the last year that has made you the most proud or the most joyful? And the second question is, what is one goal you hope to accomplish for your organization and or your community in the coming year? Now, Christine is working behind the scenes, and she will soon break us all out into these mini sessions. And don't worry if you forget the questions will pop up in the chat feature. But again, we will have 20 minutes to answer both of those questions, and then we'll all come back into the main hall to share some reflections. Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining that first breakout session. We had some pretty interesting conversations on our end, and I would love to hear what everyone else has been talking about. So with that, I'm just going to popcorn style it around. And if anybody would actually want to volunteer to talk about what you've discussed as part of your breakout session, please let me know. Please just unmute yourself and offer a few words. But for right now, we'll also start with Michael Carroll. If you want to.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. Sure, we had a pretty lively discussion. I think if there was a common theme, it was growth and innovation despite the pandemic. That, you know, people had to find new ways of doing things. Like, for example, folks in Greenville, Mississippi, actually assisted their local businesses figure out how to do social media, how to take advantage of that forum, and then they actually went around with their cell phones and did little 1-minute clips of the businesses. So they were able to actually increase their membership despite the challenges that the businesses were having. Other groups, similar patterns of growth, new resources, increased staffing despite the situation and the pandemic. So growth and innovation, I think, was the common theme in our session. There was a little bit of a discussion about the challenge around vaccinations as folks continue to think about reopening and getting things back to normal order. And so that's something that maybe is more pertinent to the next question about goals for next year, but it's a challenge for some folks getting all their folks vaccinated. And I would invite anybody from my group to add to that if I missed anything.
Got all that.
I'm getting a thumbs up from Will there, so.
That's great. I see.
So I'm not endeavoring to speak for my group. This is Bob Reeder. I just think that we talked about a little bit about placemaking and this idea that in rural communities, I guess in all communities, we have to understand what is the value that we see in our remaining there. What things keep us there, and how might we redefine those narratives? That's all, to make it more beneficial for everybody. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, we had a great conversation on placemaking around that. I see a hand up though, Pamela Senator.
Yeah, hi, sorry guys, I can't get my camera to work, but can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. So actually the buzzword in our group was resiliency, and how much inspiration came from the resiliency of the communities that Rural LISC deals with. But on top of that, one of like a takeaway was that as government resources are stretched, there was the resiliency of the groups made them move closer to receiving foundation, making relationships with foundations, which I thought was was interesting. You start to close the door somewhere, you look for another place to satisfy the needs. So. But the inspiration that comes from the resiliency of the people that we deal with was very encouraging.
That's great. Thanks, Pam, for that share out, especially related to adaptation strategies, which are only going to become increasingly more important as we are under the threat of accelerating climatic activity. So very important theme indeed. Anybody else want to share out on some great nuggets that were being discussed during your breakouts?
Absolutely. We had a very robust discussion in our group. Want to co-sign the point of resiliency. We both internal resiliency, the organizations that were, we had an organization that was able to celebrate being able to stay open and keep their doors open during the pandemic period, but also an organization that supports small businesses that was able to acknowledge that they had an increase in the number of businesses in their district over the pandemic period, as opposed to a shrinkage. Even dealing with closings, they had net new businesses in their area. We had a lot of organizations dealing with different types of struggles, but able to show a lot of resiliency and moving forward and staying to this day.
That's really encouraging to hear about the small business gain during this time. So, we always think it's like all these bad stories to share, but in fact, all these great highlights too that come out of this. Anybody else? Anything interesting that maybe a bit unexpected that you wouldn't have expected about a year or a year and a half ago that you're now having to pivot and to adjust to right now?
A couple of organizations in the session that I sat in on that talked about the refocusing and right-sizing the organizations and really getting back to the mission of the organization, recognizing that they may have strayed a little bit, taken on more. I thought that was interesting because, it does when you're faced with some obstacles and some challenges, it does make you sort of self-examine, do a self-examination to see, what are we doing that we don't need to do or aren't the best to do, and where's our strengths? So I thought that was interesting.
I think we might, Emily, do we have enough time for a few more comments? I know Will and Katie, you both have your arms raised. Would love to hear your comments before we break out into the next session.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
Great. All right, Will, let's start with.
I just quickly wanted to say that one thing that we've noticed, or that I would have never imagined, is that the entrepreneurship and small business growth in our community. And so from that, we just developed and launched a new small business program, partnering with the community college, with banks. We're trying to get more partners like lawyers and other groups. LISC is one that it's called Washington County Launch, but I think Secretary of State Mississippi said 2019 it was maybe 30,000 new businesses, and this year it was like 60 or 70,000. So that's really a pocket or an area in a rural community that I think that we all can and truly assist. And entrepreneurship, and this is me saying this personally, is to me the only way to really grow these rural communities with new blood. And so that's why I think it's been overlooked for so long. And I'm excited that it's risen. It's been elevated to a topic of note. So.
No,
So Will, this is Bob. I'm so sorry. In your area, what is the appetite for pro bono kinds of services from the people you just said you needed, the lawyers, the architects, the engineers? How does that go? So
two things. One is with the banks, super easy, like doing financial literacy classes, partnering to help with entrepreneurship. Lawyers is a little bit harder, and we're trying to get them as well. And then another group that you got to look at is landowners or business owners. And luckily, one of LISC partners, Greater Greenville, they just purchased the entire 300 block of downtown Greenville. And so we're working with them. So once people, help complete our small business program or get help, they then can go into that feeder pipeline with Greater Greenville to get storefront space or incubator type space at low or no cost. And so I think that's something, and Bob, what you're saying is so true, but I think that's something that we overlook is once we help these folks, where are they going to go? Are they going to stay online presence or especially all of us, I think, in a rural area trying to redevelop downtowns and main streets. We're very lucky to have another partner agency that controls such a large plot of land now. So
Oh,
I hope that answered your question, Bob.
No, it did. It did. And you know, I've been to the Greenville. I know right where you're at.
Yeah,
yeah.
So,
Thanks, Will. It would definitely, hopefully you can get into more detail on that tomorrow too, as we do our breakout sessions for small business and entrepreneurship. As you know, as we explore ways to really kind of move that economic asset needle, entrepreneurship is definitely one of those areas that is just growing in leaps and bounds, especially coming out of that pandemic. So very timely. I want to give Katie and Tracy, I know you both have your arms up. So Katie, let's go with you.
Hey, first, I just want to say thank you. This has been really enlightening, and just hearing from everyone else from across the country, whether, you know, they're saying innovation, growth. One of my group members, I think, summed it up beautifully and said, you know, we really are embracing responsiveness to community, you know, whether it's braiding funding, whether it's being forward facing with an online portal, whether it's we have to grow and help at a statewide level for a while because we have the capacity to do this. I think the pandemic and really, you know, going, hey, we got to take on this transition has enabled folks to really step out and own that. And I loved hearing about it.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. Really quickly, next comment by Tracy, and then Emily, I'll hand it off to you to put us back in some breakout sessions for the second question.
Good afternoon, everyone. In our session, we saw the importance of internet. Both Jim and Paul and I had received donations from government agencies in Philadelphia area to donate to kids during the COVID. We received like 100 computers from IRS. And Paul, I believe he got it from United Health, and we were able to put that Connect Divide along with hotspots in there, and that's important for the value of internet.
Broadband has indeed been a theme that's resonating throughout. I know our group in particular, talked quite a bit about the significance of broadband capabilities and how important that is for everything from workforce to housing to all these other challenges that we face. So with that, I want to really end the session on a moment of inspiration. So I'm going to take some time, and I know we're coming up against time here, but please stay with us for the next breakout session, where we're going to talk more about where you all really want to go moving into the next year in terms of the vision for your organization. And so Emily, I believe, is going to break us out into some additional sessions. So hold on one moment. Some of our moderators just highlight some of the issues that kind of came up in your breakout sessions. And let me see, I am going to call on Justin.
Yeah, we had a couple of things that got elevated. I think some of the big pieces that people are looking for in the coming year is sort of a push on policy, especially thinking through how we can have meaningful impact there to elevate some of the work at a systems level. Another big concept that I think that was getting pushed out was this idea of us really starting to move to a regionalism framework as we're diving into the work. And thinking about how economies really exist on that scale and aren't always as hyper micro as we might tend to believe.
Great, thanks, Justin. Anybody else wanted to share what their group was discussing? If not, I'll call on you.
Looks like Beth has her hand up. So we were overachievers, so we answered both questions in the first round. So we delve a little bit deeper and started talking about things we don't want to bring back from the past in this new, quote unquote, new normal. And we also started talking about the sustainability of a lot of the, government dollars, the CARES Act dollars and programs like PPP and all of the work that our organizations have taken on during the pandemic. What does that look like, sustainability wise? And one comment that came up that I thought was really interesting was around just people recognizing the importance of CDFIs in our community and how efficient and effective we can be in both getting resources out, but also connecting resources to those who need them the most. And so I thought that was just really an important point to share. And then a lot of us just talked about, you know, having this hybrid model of technology and continuing to build relationships in person when we're able to safely, but then also maximizing our time with technology, both in program delivery, but also in the way we connect across the state and region in our areas.
That's great. Absolutely. Yeah, this notion of sustainability, right? In terms, there's just so much money coming our way from state and county level through CARES and ARPA. And you know, I think we assume that we can take it down, leverage the funds, and there's the capacity and support in order to do so. But you know, any other organizations that have been finding that as a difficulty or something that you're planning to maybe even enhance kind of going into the new year in terms of overarching supports for compliance and grant writing and anything else related to government funding?
I'll jump in real quick and just say regarding that, you know, it's kind of like the Wild West right now. I mean, you know, we'll have so many, whether it's community stakeholders, businesses, whatever, ask, you know, like, hey, I heard this money's coming down the pipe. What are you using it for? Or is this money coming down the pipe? So I think with all of us as stakeholders, you know, part of our role is to help supply verified information or the correct information. But everybody's just throwing so many questions, I know, at our organization regarding funding. And it's like, hey, we're just still trying to wrap our head around CARES Act funding last year even. You know, I mean, it's kind of like that. And so it's really been a mess, to hard to do that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I would add to that, this is Darren over at Central Missouri Community Action. In our group, we talked about this a little bit, but you know, anytime there's an influx of new funding, it changes us. You know, we learn from it, and it's not that we just did more of what we had already been doing. We modified our structures and our implementation. And just as an example, we started our Financial Opportunity Center with CSBG CARES Act funding. And when that funding goes away, we want to sustain that model. You know, that we have found that to be very effective, and it's an important part of our strategy now. But we need to maintain some of the things we were doing before. So we have to think differently about what the sustainability will look like for that. But it's a huge challenge, and you know, we're a year out from it and starting to plan on it already.
That's great. Kim, it looks like you have your hand up. You want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely want to echo what I'm hearing here. And I also know from being a part of distributing and helping with the CARES Act from the beginning, and it's still going on, it doesn't close until the end of this year, that it's important to look at the data that comes out from that. And I really think that that's where LISC is crucial to our organization, because a lot of the information that came out of that was people couldn't apply if they didn't have their financials, if they didn't have their 2019 taxes, if they don't know their cost of goods sold. That EDL application and the PPP application were about as easy, I mean, as I've seen a loan application get. But if you don't have access to those numbers because you're not keeping up on your bookkeeping, just the fundamentals of small business, then you're gonna be left behind. And I think that the ability that we have with LISC now to reach out to the 3 counties that we serve, to just sit and do their QuickBooks with them so that they can access that information when they need it. It's just these fundamental pieces, you know, they don't have Adobe PDF to be signing and printing forms. It's just all the same things. I'm sure some of you experience all of this because I'm seeing some nodding heads, but going forward, I think we all got a big reset when we saw some of the smallest things that were affecting people's ability to get access to some of this funding and some of these resources. And not just on the national level, because that CARES Act was obviously distributed by state and then by county and then by city. So it's still going on. And so once somebody gets set up as a business owner, then they get set up for the distance. They know where we're at and they can continue to access us. So thank you for letting me share that.
No, thank you, Kim, for those remarks. And, I think it echoes what Will had stated earlier also, which is just really this huge push towards more supports that are needed for small business and entrepreneurs, giving just kind of the evolution of investment that we're seeing. I know, Pam, also, I want to give you an opportunity. You have your hand up also to comment.
Sure. Pam Johnson from Fahi. One of the things that we've been talking about, and we're getting ready to have our caucus meetings with our memberships. So we're going to be having these individually at state levels, but we've been talking to the HFAs in each of our states, letting them know that we know that they're getting ready to have an influx of money coming in. And as the boots on the ground, the nonprofit communities are ready to help move the affordable housing dollars that are coming into the states, and trying to find out how we can be assisting them as a solution to the money that, most of them said this is more money than we know what to do with. So they're trying to figure out how to deploy the funds and make the greatest impact. At the same time, I've had a few small local governments that have reached out to me that I've worked with over the years, and they're being faced with the exact same thing. There's lots of money coming to the local governments, and they're not sure what to do with it. And we've been having conversations because it's a real concern. There's so much money coming. It's more money than they have ever seen before and that we will ever see again. And as this money comes into our region in Appalachia, we need to be part of a group that's sort of coming up with a plan to help our local governments figure out how to make the best decisions on using their money. Everybody, like Will said, lots of people are showing up saying that, hey, I need money, and everybody's got a handout. They can't just start giving the money out, just writing a check to everyone, or we won't see anything happen with this money. And this is such a critical time for us to be working together, coming up with decisions that will make the greatest impact in our community. So that's one of the things that I'm really trying to think ahead about. How do I work with our membership and work with their local governments and see what we can do. I mean, we, as an intermediary, we can help them with compliance. We're really good with those federal regulations. That's money we're accustomed to working with, and help them think about, what are the assets that they do have in their communities and what are they missing? What do they need to do with this money?
Mhm.
That is, and so timely, right, in terms of reinforcing the theme of this year's Rural Seminar Conference, which is really looking at unique partnerships to move the investment needle in rural communities. And so much of this work is critical to doing just that. I think we have time for one more comment. I just want to open it up to anybody else that just wants to share before we close out, before we head into day 2 of the seminar. Anybody else? All right, Nadia, I'm going to ask you just real quick to kind of briefly recap what our group discussed.
Yeah, I'd love to. Appreciate that. So I had the unique Zoom fortune of having most of the similar people joining my session. And one of the people that joined was Kate. And so I had to ask her the question for Rural LISC. And I think it ties in well with what we're saying already, this idea of resilience and adaptation, but really look at what that actually looks like in a community, not be prescriptive, but really analyze what that looks like and really help communities adapt and then sustain these efforts that they have brought into place because of COVID and other natural realities that have happened in the last year, and really keep those moving forward, right? Not necessarily always be so reactive, but be responsive as well. And then we had a great conversation with Dakota Howe. She was unfortunately unable to talk to us virtually. She had to do it by the text. So she shared with all of us her experiences. And what was nice was then we were able to recognize opportunities for connection. So again, this is the theme, is partnerships for investment in rural America. And so Justin, I'll be sharing Dakota Howe's information with you and the work she's doing with 14 to 24-year-olds in Nebraska. And so I think that's the other part of it is recognizing that there's so many connections that we can make just by a little bit of conversation. We can already see connections that are happening. So it was great to do that. Nice.
And no, that's perfect segue into closing out today's first event for Rural Seminar, leading us into day 2 and day 3. But I can't thank all of you enough for staying with us until 6 p.m. Eastern time here. We have quite a few participants that have been very much engaged in these conversations. So I know day 2 and day 3 of this seminar is going to be incredibly dynamic, and I can't wait for the breakout sessions. Where we will have a lot more opportunity to really dive down into the nitty-gritty of program details. But before we go, please hang on for just one moment, because I do need to share some logistics for the coming days that will just kind of aid in your overall navigation ease of this virtual platform. First, please know that the virtual fee pairs platform requires quite a few fun and useful features, but one of the features that you should really know about is the My Agenda. If you click on My Agenda, you can add everything to your Outlook calendar or your Google Calendar, and it will just really streamline operations for the day 2 and 3 of the event. Also, if you haven't yet discovered this, please keep a lookout for the Rural LISC Seminar 21 gold coins. They're tiny little coins, or about 25 of them scattered throughout the website, in the lounge, and also in the lobby. And if you collect enough of these coins, you get to win some really cool Rural LISC swag. So that includes a coffee press and some masks and some t-shirts and some other great Rural LISC paraphernalia. Also, for a little extra tech support, if you're anything like me, you will require this. If you click on the red VFairs technical support bubble, there will be a person operating that behind, actually 2, including our own person who's here in-house providing some tech services. So please know that that will be available to you throughout this entire seminar series. And also, please feel free to post in the event feed. You can use the chat feature throughout all of the sessions, to post in social media. We'd really encourage you to post on LinkedIn and Twitter, and use that hashtag #InvestInRural, including to Facebook, Instagram, and various other social media platforms. So with that, we hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we really look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning for day 2 of Rural Seminar. We have quite a few dynamic VIP speakers, so a lot more great stuff to come. Thanks for joining us this evening. Take care, everybody.
You.